Hello and welcome to the viewers of this video. This is the Orange Fan here, bringing you another entry for the episode Recap and Thoughts category. This video will be dedicated to the B segment of episode 8 of The Loud House, Changing the Baby. We begin this segment with Lincoln going to his sisters asking if they'd like to join him in one of his hobbies or interests, but they all turn down the offer, making it clear they have no interest in what he finds interesting. And Lincoln admits that it is tough to find someone to do stuff with when, despite the number of siblings, they don't seem to share much in common with each other. He brings this up to Lily even as she crawls in and saying how she'll have her own interests too. But then Lincoln considers that Lily is still a baby and figures maybe he could mold her into enjoying the interests he has. He tries this out by handing her a video game controller because playing video games was the last thing he suggested before Lily came in. And Lily is mashing the buttons and all, and Lincoln decides, yeah, he wants to give this a try. Ironically enough, Clyde, who does share his interest with him, actually does come by to see if he wants to hang out, but Lincoln says he's trying to change the baby. Well, he's doing a title drop for the segment. And Clyde doesn't understand why he wants to hang out with Lily. Now, we do see a montage of Lincoln introducing Lily to some of his interests. In fact, the interests that he tried with his other sisters earlier, such as a savvy science fiction shows and movies, and a coin collection, just to name a few examples. And then later on, he actually takes Lily out somewhere out on the town and throughout different places like a store and the park. And during this part, we actually do see Clyde spying on him, trying to figure out why he wants to hang out with Lily. And the last place they go is in the park, where Lincoln actually shows he's not bad of a chess player, and he thinks he has succeeded in molding Lily into sharing the interests he has. And although Lily is still attached to her blanket, Lincoln tosses it aside and it ends up landing on Clyde, who's in one of his hiding spots. And Clyde still doesn't understand why he's hanging out with Lily, but he's starting to have an idea forming in his head at this point. Back at the house, Lincoln is playing some more video games with Lily, and the other sisters come in and are surprised by the sight, and Lincoln reveals he decided to have Lily share his interests so he won't bother them with any of his interests again, saying that it's a win-win situation. Afterwards, he's reading an Ace Savvy comic to Lily rather than in place of the Tell Kids a Bedtime Story. It's Ace Savvy comic, and Lily falls asleep. He kisses her on the forehead, thanks her for a great day, and he goes to bed himself. When the next day rolls around, though, Lincoln can't find Lily in her crib, and it turns out the rest of the Loud sisters like the idea that Lincoln had, and they decided to do it themselves. That is to say, get Lily interested in their interests, so they'll have a sibling to do something with. And as this is going on, it leads to a whole, what would you call it? Maybe like a tug of war, or it's like hot potato, or pretty much Lincoln and the 9 older Loud sisters, at least older than Lily anyway, are all fighting over who gets to make Lily into their mini-me, if you will. And while this is all going on, we actually do get a little bit of details about the Loud family's extended relatives. Lucy actually brings up they have a great-grandma Harriet, and near the end of the argument, when Lincoln and the 9 sisters are arguing towards the end of it, Lucy even points out that she received a message from beyond from great-grandma Harriet saying she's not happy about Lori regifting her old brooch to Bobby, or Bobby's family anyway. We'll get to that a little later. But by the end of this, Lincoln says that probably the only thing they can do is just have Lily pick who she'd rather follow the example of. So they all line up and they all hold something to represent their particular interest, and they kind of do try to encourage Lily to pick them, but Lily has a very stressed expression on her face. And then Clyde arrives, and Clyde doesn't know why Lincoln likes hanging out with babies, but if that's what Lincoln wants, Clyde then dresses like a baby, the diaper, the little head hood thingy, and he even has Lily's blanket with him, and Lily starts to crawl, but she ends up going to her blanket and reclaiming her blanket from Clyde. And Clyde, at first, while he looks like he's going to yell at Lily, he finds her too cute and actually can see why Lincoln wanted to hang out with Lily. But then when Lincoln finds out he thought he was being replaced, Lincoln assured Clyde he had no intention to replace Clyde. He just wanted to have a sibling to hang out with, but he recognizes that Clyde is someone who likes to do stuff with him. It's then when Lincoln realizes that no matter what he or any of the sisters try to do, Lily will eventually have her own interests and grow into them as she gets older. And then Lincoln realizes he could hang out with Clyde and tries to follow up on Clyde's offer from before, but Clyde ends up wanting to hang out with Lily instead. And then the segment ends with Lori calling Bobby, asking if he still has the brooch that she gave to his mother, and Lucy smiling, or smirking, I should say, because of Great Grandma Harriet's message from earlier. So overall, the thing I liked about this segment was that we actually did have a segment dedicated to Lily, or at least with Lily being in the spotlight. Well, Lincoln's still the viewpoint character, but Lily is the sister with a prevalent role in it. And that was a nice touch because, admittedly, being a baby, Lily doesn't really have much of a personality, but they actually managed to make a segment out of that fact. And I can see how that was why the sisters and Lincoln wanted to have someone to share their interests with because of that. But at the same time, they did eventually address that while Lily might not have much of a personality for now, she will eventually come to have her own interests and hobbies. And actually it does bring up a good point. I'm wondering if any of the sisters or Lincoln ever tried this before Lily, or I guess the segment implies they didn't, but because, yeah, I'm sure that Lincoln and his sisters, they weren't all just born with their interests or their hobbies. That happened eventually, so it was a good point they recognized that too with Lily. She might be a blank slate for now, but she could eventually gain her own interests when that time eventually comes. And that was something else. Some people thought it was kind of strange, actually, that none of the siblings had anything in common with each other, because Lenny didn't seem to mind playing video games and driving Miss Hazy, and Lori was playing video games with Lincoln too at one point, but I guess maybe you could chalk that up as just them not feeling in the mood for it. Like how some people might have particular taste in a food, but only for certain occasions. Well, it's made a lot of people wonder, but I could look it over. I thought it was a nice segment, and yeah, you can probably tell I did prefer this segment to its sibling segment, though I didn't dislike the sibling segment. It was just kind of there for me. I thought this one was nice, and it was clever how they addressed a segment about Lily's lack of personality. And I did like how we did get to hear a little bit more about family members. Like, this was, I believe, the first time Great Grandma Harriet was mentioned, and she does get addressed again in the future, but that was a nice touch. And we also, this was the first time that Bobby's mom, Mrs. Santiago, was mentioned, and we will end up seeing her in the future, and we'll cross that bridge when we get to it. So overall, yeah, I thought this was a fun segment. It was nice to see how Lily. It was nice to have a segment dedicated to Lily because you wouldn't expect her to get much attention, but they managed to work with her lack of personality into a story. And it was nice to hear more about both the Loud family and the Santiago family to a limited extent. So, all in all, I thought this was a good segment. And with that, we've now discussed episode 8 on this channel. Take care, and until next time.